What's the fake yell sound like?
I would just get over the top like, "Hi, Maya," and there's always a tone I use. I'll be like, "Maya."
I have a friend who says he has a foolproof test to see if you should be in therapy, and it goes like this: do you have parents? Well, I am here with one of my favorite dads, Adam. Adam, will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Adam Hibble. I'm a great dad, and I have some wisdom to share.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's dig into it. So let's just start. You have one incredible daughter. So start just like tell me about Maya.
Oh, let's see. Maya is 16 and a half right now, and she is, in general, a great kid. Like, very proud of her. Let's see about her. She loves her friends. She does like 12 hours of dance competition practice each week. So she loves dance and competing in dance. She gets good grades. And for a 16-year-old, she is certainly a considerate and sweet kid on the scale that I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, she's, when I visited you in Oregon last year, when it was the first time I'd seen her in years, and just like like she's a person, and what a wonderful person she is. Like she was just so gracious, and there was I noticed like a complete lack of like awkwardness, and like here's one of my dad's friends. I mean, I've known her since she was a little kid, but I hadn't seen her in a long time, and there was none of that awkwardness. So it was really sweet to interact, and now I've seen her a few more times. So she is.
Yeah,
I concur with everything.
she seems to have a lot more comfort with herself and general confidence, way more than I did or my wife did at that age. So I don't know where she got it from, but yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Stork, probably.
Yeah.
Think back to when you guys got pregnant and when she was born. Like, what was it? What was the process of you becoming a dad like? Like, what did that mean to you?
It was very amorphous and open-ended at the time. There really were no, I had people to talk with about what to expect, certainly, but like really being prepared for it, there is no way to prepare for it. It's just like, you're on the job training. So
yeah.
One of the things, early on, Suzette and I put together like a CPR, having a baby and what we wanted to give to that child. And we also kind of put together like a little vision statement for what we wanted.
Well, that was
her.
Like when she was pregnant? While she was pregnant, you guys did that?
Actually, even before she got pregnant. So when it was clear, like we were trying, we wanted to both figure out how best to prepare and at the same time kind of figure out our different parenting styles, which unfolded as, once we had Maya, those styles became very apparent over time as, she grew in age.
Where do you feel like your parenting style came from? Like what influenced it, or how did it emerge? Like, what did you notice?
I think a lot of it probably came from my father, in terms of, doing more listening than talking and kind of asking open-ended questions.
That was what your dad was like.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
My parenting style also came from the men that were around me at the time. Like you'd already, you had kids.
A head start, yeah.
Yeah, you had a good 3 to 4 year head start on us at least. Yeah, more than that.
Dude, Olivia's 20, almost 23.
Wow. Okay, so you had quite a head start.
Yeah.
And Leo certainly had a good 3 years on her, maybe 4 years 21. On her. I remember.
He's 21.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 5 to 7 years. Yeah, so like a life cycle. I mean, I was, a whole 7-year cycle ahead of your dad experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think parenting style came a lot from both the men around me as well as my own father, a little bit from my mother. And I think, general style is more listening, um, lots of open ended questions,
Hmm.
um, lots of teasing. There's certainly from the get go, there's a lot of teasing so she could get comfortable with people poking fun or teasing and learn how to play with that and not take it personal, that kind of thing.
What
Um,
was that like? That I mean, you had to like certainly go too far at times and then dial it back. But what were those moments like?
sure, just saying funny little things to her or off the wall comments or like her nickname when she was 1 year old, like the nickname she got was Monkey Butt, and that kind of stayed with her for quite some time, and I still call her that from time to time, and she laughs about it, and she laughed about it the whole time.
Hmm.
One time she asked me, why do you call me that? And I said, because when we were changing your diaper when you were little, you had a bright red butt, and so we called you Monkey Butt. And uh, so those kinds of like little fun and teasing for her to get used to how to play like that,
Right.
uh, those were certainly integrated. Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, how did you know what was in range and what was too far?
Probably experimenting, certain things don't land, like adding levity. Sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you got to go back and apologize and say, this is what I meant. And this wasn't my intention to hurt your feelings. And that's certainly part of the process so
Yeah.
that she can develop trust and know also how to express when something didn't land for her, etc.
Is she pretty good about that? Like being able to communicate that for herself?
She is pretty good about that, certainly. She is not nearly like as emotional as as Suzette, her mom. She tends to kind of, if she's feeling something, she will not necessarily like blurt it out. She'll start to internally like process it, and then sometimes she will ask questions like to get clearer or to, create connection where there is a break in connection or something like that.
You said you got from your dad the idea of like just being in that place of asking open-ended questions and being curious. What is your relationship with your dad, and how did that show up in your fathering?
My dad, I think in general, a big part of the way my dad parented, and I think the way that he just is with other people, is he generally does his best to put himself in the other person's shoes. So he kind of asks questions from that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
like, to gain closeness and to open up dialogue. He generally uses that kind of practice. Like, how did this feel to you? Where are you coming from? How was that experience? Did it scare you? Were you excited? What does it feel physically in your body? I think I talk more as a father or ask more questions as a father than he did, but that kind of coming from a perspective of trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes, I think that was a big part of his parenting.
Yeah.
Granted, there were times where it's like, I did something that was like, and he would be rash in his response. And, there were those times. So it wasn't always the same. Those, like, my dad was a bit of comedy, and he was a bit of Clint Eastwood, and he was a bit of, he's also a bit of like, Gandhi at the same time. Like, he kind of had those three to pull from, and it seemed like random which he was going to pull from at a certain time. So
It sounds a lot like you.
to a certain extent, yeah,
Yeah.
hope
Yeah.
so, yeah.
No, it's a pretty good description. It's such an interesting thing becoming a dad, because the first thing that comes up, at least for me, and I think our experience, is like my childhood. Like I'm seeing a childhood unfold in front of me, and it's hard, and I always project myself into that, and then thought about my relationship with my parents and who do I want to be, and how much of any of that, like from your childhood, shows up in your parenting of Maya.
Well, my biological mom left when I was 5, and I saw her like once a year after that. So there, you know, there's kind of a tendency for me to want to make sure everything's all right and create closeness, and always like, are we good? That question is always in the background. Are we good? Um, so I think that did play a part with kind of raising Maya. Um, and there might be, the pendulum might have swung the other way in a bit, in that like I would often feel like wanting to make sure that we were close and that we weren't pulling apart from some big event, like that we still had closeness and um, a communication line with each other. And there were times where sometimes I wanted that more than was necessary for parenting. It's like parenting is kind of like this odd mix of like, especially from my perspective, like the first thing is I've got a job to do. Like first and foremost, I need to make sure she's successful. Like whether she likes me or I like her in the moment or we're getting along, that's not the priority. The priority is, doing things in a way that ensure that she's going to be successful, but also feel loved and cared for, etc. So that secondary part of like trying to always wanting to make sure that we're like on the same page and we're close, and if we have some kind of break and beyond belonging, that we clean it up like as quickly as possible. I may early have overcompensated for that. As time progressed, I started to get really clear, like there are times where she's not going to like me and won't be happy with you know the situation I've set up, meaning like what's going to be best for her is not going to be what she likes necessarily in every moment. So having to develop like a certain kind of tough skin was kind of part of my own learning process, I think, over time in parenting.
You mean that you've developed a tough skin. If she doesn't like you, it's not impacting you. You're able to stay focused on the
Right, because
intent.
my priority is her success. Yeah.
Yeah. So how'd you do that? Like, what was your way of going about setting yourself up to go? There's going to be some periods of time where she doesn't like me, but I know why I'm doing it, and I know what the net result will be. How do you, especially given the experience you had of like your mother leaving, and so whatever mark that left, whatever sort of abandonment concern, like that had to come up in those moments. So how did you work to be there for Maya and not like be reliving your childhood?
Yeah, I think the practice was kind of, first and foremost to slow things down, no rash decisions or rash commentary. Like, something happened, like, she missed her curfew or something like that, and by a significant time, then, there are often consequences around that. But instead of me getting upset immediately and throwing down, like, this is what's going to happen, I think I spent more time practicing thinking things through and having some questions with her, and then taking some more time and thinking like, what's the best remedy to this solution, and then talking through that with Suzette and making sure that we were on the same page and that how we delivered something was in the same kind of context, overall context and purpose. And then having kind of a methodical discussion with her. And granted, we tend to keep discussions with her short because I think with any kid or even young
Yeah.
adult, their attention is pretty short. So you gotta hit it in a short period of time without it dragging on for her to like grok everything that's going on. Um, but I think we'd lay it out like making sure that she feels heard first, and then letting her know like where the break was and how that affects us, how it would affect her as an adult if that happened.
Yeah.
And then from there, like saying, do you get this? Are we all on the same page? And then if there's related consequences, like, okay, we need to adjust this somehow, so there's a consequence, and it could look like this, or it could look, and give her a menu, like, and have all the consequences, whatever that menu is, like kind of be in line with the learning of, what went wrong, like something that would support her and kind of be in line with the overall context of the event.
I just struck by just how thoughtful, like how much consideration that you put into all of those things. And I think that's, it's not always the easiest thing to do, is to, as you just laid it out, like work through all those aspects of it. One of the things that I think I was terrible at as a dad was the consequences side. I just never knew how to use that effectively. And because I didn't, I don't think my kids got many like actual consequences, like lose privilege kind of consequences. I think what they get from me more is like I was, kind of like you get a lot of disapproval from me sort of thing, but which I thought was a
Yeah.
pretty shit consequence. But like, how did you work with consequences, and how do you think they like helped with the situation?
Consequences, I felt like, were a much better alternative for her learning than taking on my disappointment or something like that. I felt a lot of shame as a kid around my mother and father, and like felt like I disappointed them a lot.
Mm.
And I think with my mother, consequences look like a lot of things, but always included in that, or my biological mother, always included that would be like, I can't believe you did this, right? And then I just, add that to the other stack and just continue moving them around with this kind of like, I've disappointed everyone all the time kind of feeling. I
Huh.
didn't want her to have that. So whenever that kind of came into play, I would often use a little bit of levity. Like I would fake yell. I'd be like, I can't believe you did this to us, and then like over dramatize things until she laughed, but kind of got, I did a lot of fake yelling when she was young. I still do it today. And it's got a certain voice to it. And there's like, it usually elicits a funny response from her. But
What's the fake yell sound like?
I would just get over the top, like, hi, Maya, and there's always a tone I use. I'll be like, Maya, like I'll say that out loud, and that's how it'll start. And then I can't believe you, or yeah, using your head for more than a hat rack. I pull out these limericks from like grandpa and dad, and like watch her roll her eyes. But anytime it was like, I want her to think about something, and there is potentially some like, yeah, if I want her to think about it, about how she's affecting other people and the repercussions of her actions on others, um, I do my best to try and stay away from shame in a real way. And I often address it through like levity in such a way that she's like, okay, this is a shaming moment, but it's hilarious. And, there's something in there for me, but like she doesn't need to take it on. And I don't think she walks around with much shame at all, which is pretty wonderful compared to
Yeah.
a lot of kids that I see, including myself growing up. So
Exactly. Well, I never thought about it that way. That like you 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 use consequences instead of the influence or leverage of shame. And so, like,
yeah.
how would you get to a consequence? Like, and how did you deliver them? And then, like, what did you feel like the impact of was of her working through a consequence?
Yeah, taking emotion out of it, I think, is the key part. Like just talking in vanilla. Like there's no anger here, there's no charge. So that would be part of the process. Like if I had charge or Suzette had charge, we try and let it go. You know, try and release that before we had the conversation with her. And then the consequences might look like, say you're late for your curfew. She was supposed to be home at 10 and she got home at 11. Like it's, and then I would say, okay, so we need to adjust this somehow for a learning moment. And so there's a consequence. And the two or three we've come up with are, you lose the car for 3 days. You don't drive the car for 3 days, or, you, or would you rather, lose the weekend entirely, with friends, or, give her two or three options
Hmm.
and say, like, all three of these are kind of in line with understand, they're related to their original issue, right? And having a menu was often better for her because she
And
could
then
choose the
she
least.
would then choose. Like she would somehow
Yeah,
feel like
she
she
got
had
to
some
choose.
control over it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fucking awesome. And then, so 3 days later, the consequences lifted. Is there like was there like a check in at the end, or was there like setting new agreements or new levels of commitment, or how did they end? Other than like here are the keys back.
I think it depended on, and still depends on how big the kind of break was, the issue was to begin with. Like, when she was 14, right after her 14th birthday, she was hanging around with kids that were, good kids, but not good influences for her.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have great parenting support at home. So they were, at 14, they're all out drinking and vaping and smoking weed and whatever they could, right? And they were good kids, and they were, but, shortly after her 14th birthday, she gets caught drinking a couple times. I mean, that's pretty early for drinking alcohol. At least that was my opinion. Um, and she got caught in a few lies around it. And so that was a more kind of protracted experience. Like, okay, pick your consequences. And then after, we kind of had like a follow up meeting, and like, how do you feel about it now? And do you feel like clear about, how you want to do this going forward? And have you set up any different goals for yourself or contexts that would keep you out of the situation? And, so we'd have those, and then there might be stuff still left to do after that. But, for smaller ones, like you're late an hour, and, I think the only thing that would be on the end of those is like, congrats, nice work, and enjoy the rest of enjoy your life, free, that kind of thing. So she would feel like, oh, she actually got past it. She did the work. Whether she felt like she got anything out of it or not is, less relevant. But, that there's some closure to it
She did
that's
the time.
valuable. It's a good
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
I was thinking about it in terms of, so when she's 14, you catch her drinking. I'm assuming you guys had already established that drinking was not acceptable for her. Like she knew she broke some agreement with you.
Well, we have always, or at least I have always talked with her like she's older than she is.
Okay.
So even at like 7 years old, she'll come home from, some, like fifth grade or sixth grade presentation, like the dangers of drinking and alcohol and drugs video or whatever comes up. And, we talk to her about it, afterwards. But I didn't put out any particular rules. I just said, that this is a dangerous thing when you're young, and there are a lot of questions for it, and it's not all horrible, and there are some benefits to, alcohol, and some benefits to drugs, and we'll talk about those as we go and as you have questions. And but she knew, at least, like, we don't expect you to be out drinking at 14 years old. She knew enough about that to be lying and trying to hide it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the record, when did you
So
start drinking?
that was kind of when we started setting up, like, and it was appropriate for that age. Maybe we could have done it at 13, but, like, here are the rules for you as 13, and we'll talk about this at your 14th birthday, and this is the kind of help we expect you to help out around the family.
Yeah.
And, these are the three or four things that we always have. A leash isn't the right word, but we always give a very long leash and give her the benefit of doubt, and always treat her like she's 2 or 3 years older than she is. So she's got a lot of wiggle room. But that was the point where we started picking out like 3 or 4 things. Like, okay, these 3 or 4 things are important. Please don't break these.
Mm-hmm.
And we can rediscuss, like at your next birthday and adjust these accordingly. And are
Okay.
you cool with that? Yeah.
Yeah. When did you start drinking?
When did I start drinking?
Yeah. How old were you?
I smoked weed first. Uh, probably 16. Yeah,
Okay.
16.
Yeah.
And there were people that I hung out with that were smoking weed at 14, but I didn't. And
Yeah.
there were people I hung out with that were drinking at 14, but I didn't. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Nice.
But now at 16 and a half, she's allowed, she's allowed to drink. She can have one or two drinks away from us as long
Yeah.
as she's not driving.
Right.
But that's what I mean by she's got a longer leash, but there are very clear, like, if you do this, we got a problem.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's a really important part of it that I'm getting from this conversation is that they know that the kid in advance knows what the restriction is or what the limit is or what the agreement is, and then if they break that agreement, there's the part of it that's like, all right, you broke a law, you broke an agreement, whatever, but there's like an impact of having done that. Like, I don't know whether it's like you've eroded trust between us. Like, I want to be able to trust you, and you not following through with what you said you do is eroding trust. Or was there any sort of explanation to her about like why this is even important, why there's even a rule, why you're going to have a consequence? Like, was that part of it?
Sure, we spend time talking about like why this rule is there, the benefit, etc. I think maybe less with Suzette, but definitely for me, I tried to keep as much emotion out of it.
Yeah.
Like that, I don't trust you anymore. But we would say things like, this will allow you to build, picking one of these consequences and following it through is going to will allow you to build trust and higher levels of accountability and responsibility going forward.
Yeah. Great. So back to earlier, we were talking about how you would put yourself in a position where it was, you're like, I'm okay not being liked right now because my job is to make sure you're successful. So what were some of the core principles that you've really sought to instill in her that would be leading her to the level of success that you envision for her?
Oh, we started with, let's see if I can find this. I should have this kind of memorized, but we started with an intention for her when she was young. Here it is. Our desire is that you have confidence, compassion, and a deep awareness that you can create whatever you desire in life. So we started sharing that with her when she was young, and at
Just
different points
saying that
about
to her. Just saying that to her.
Yeah, this is our original vision for you. Like,
oh wow, can you say it again?
Our desire is that you have confidence, compassion, and a deep awareness that you can create whatever you desire in life.
Okay.
That's kind of like the upfront statement. What we want you to have, what we wish for you is confidence, compassion, which compassion is a hard one for a 16-year-old, 14 to 16. It's like they don't have their attention on that. So to have her to start thinking about that early, like how she treats her friends, etc., and how she expects to be treated compassionately. And then the last part, just that you develop a deep awareness that you can generate whatever you want. You do have that ability. Like, and it might take some time, but that is definitely within you, and to like foster that from the beginning. And she said, like, and so she would say, like, I want to get this trike or something like that, and we've already bought the Christmas presents already, and we're like, okay, you want to get this trike, let's talk about steps, how to make your desire a reality. Like, you want to do that, great. And then baby steps, what could you do around the house, what kind of chores do you like to help out with, and how long will it take to make that money? And then where should we get it? What's the best price? Like walk through those things with her to make something she wants or desires a reality, whether it's a material thing or non-material.
Yeah, or relationship, or yeah, anything. That's awesome.
Yeah. Does that kind of answer it?
What I'm hearing is you and Suzette got clear really early on the kind of person you wanted Maya to grow into as an adult. I think it was Louis C.K. said, like, it's not gonna be funny, but he is like, I mean, it was part of a joke, but he goes, it dawned on him, he's like, I'm not raising children, I'm raising adults. And I heard
Yeah.
him say that, and I was like, right, that's true. The majority of the time you're going to be spending with your kid is as an adult. So I love the attention on who are they going to be as adults. Like, the kid journey is awesome and everything like that, but it's going to wind up in an eventuality called an adult. And I'm like, I just want to raise kids I want to hang out with, I
Yeah.
want to spend time with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The kind
enjoy.
of people you enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Both for them to have that experience, right, with other people, that other people feel that way for about them, but more importantly, that they feel internally how they feel about themselves. Like, I do have
Right.
the confidence to talk to who I want if I want. Yeah.
That's great. Now, you and Suzette have very different personalities from each other, and Maya seems to kind of have her own. And one of the things that I always thought about as I was raising kids was like the difference between nature and nurture. Like, how much do they just come into the world the way they are, and how much are we generally influencing who they become? What is your take on that?
Yeah, I'd say the way most people talk about it is pretty right on. Like 80 to 90% is nature and 10 to 20% is nurture. But,
Mm-hmm.
it's like nurture goes a long way. Nurture's, I like to think about like directing a force, right? That's what nurture is about. Like if you broke a dam, you can't stop the water, right, from going wherever it wants to go. But if you pay attention and you can kind of help direct that water in the ways that it's going to be, the best uses of it. Nurture goes a long way. They are totally two different realms, and you could have the twins with the exact same nature, and they're going to turn out so different
Right.
because maybe they had separate parents. Like, you put a twin over here and you put an identical twin over here. Their nature should, if they're identical, they should be pretty much, spot on identical on most issues, experiences, etc. But then you add the nurture part into that, two different totally sets of parents, those kids are not going to be anywhere near the same. I mean,
Yeah.
they're going to have a lot of similarities, but they're also going to have completely different personalities and characters, and that's all the nurture part. So,
Right.
even though people say it's 10 to 15% or whatever it is, they are two totally different realms, and that 10 to 15% you can direct a lot of, let's just call them, a force. Children are a force. You can direct them a lot with that small amount of love and care or guidance.
That's a great way of saying it, Adam. Like, they're already a force. That's their nature. They are a force, and the nurture part is directing that force. I like that. There's also, like, people sometimes use the nurture part to fuck up their kids. Like, there's
Sure.
like, you can direct them in a really negative way, but um but the opposite of that, like, you really being there for Maya. Like, what are some memories you have, or times where you just felt like I was really there for that kid? I'm really proud of how I showed up.
I think one of the big recent ones is when she was 15, as a freshman. She was probably like a B student. She'd get an A and she'd get a C, and the rest would be B's. We started talking about like college. She got really excited about college because she's watching all these college kids on her teen programs, and so we started chatting about that. and obviously the question about like grades and how important are grades and how do they play a role in colleges and just general screenings. Like you're going to be screened your whole life for a number of things, and
Mm,
things like grades are a screening criteria. They may not mean anything, they may just be part of a game, but knowing how to play that game is important. And so she was very curious about, like, okay, so she was feeling a little like, I'm doing my best and I'm getting B's. And
mm.
so we started having all kinds of, again, short conversations. That's my key, is 1,000 short conversations, no long ones, but a lot of short conversations that involve, like, progressively involve talking about, like, how could we get better grades? And, we started talking about, like, let's get a tutor. Let's find a really fun tutor who could explain things to you.
Mm,
So when you're in class, you're already picking it up already.
yeah.
Um, and walking through a bunch of different ideas like that, some that worked for her, some that didn't work for her, some like technology tools, and then like talking about the benefits of, what if you were to get straight A's? Like, what that would look like, how good you would feel about it, like
Mm,
how much power, internal power that would give you, and like having her start thinking about like the tactical kind of sensation of being a success in something you didn't think you were going to be able to do better on. So a lot of short conversations around that. And then also like little incentives, like, and if you get more, it started off with like, if you get more A's than you get B's, then, you know, we'll put 200 bucks in your next account for shopping for clothes. She loves
mhm,
clothes and stuff like
mhm.
that. So like little incentives along the way. And then she started just, taking little pieces and, you know, some coaching, some just like paying more attention because she knows she's going to get some good money out of it, that kind of thing, until she gets to the place where like all of a sudden she got more A's than B's. And, it's a big success for her. And then
Yeah.
she got all A's and one B. And then she's starting to like refigure like, how come I couldn't get that, the last A? What do I need to do to get that last, like, and then like how to work with teachers. Like, are you going in at lunch? She's like, what's the point of that? I'm not learning anything more. They don't seem to be able to teach me even when I go in extra. And we talk about like, there's other aspects to this game. This game is all about relationships and that the teacher knows that you're interested. And therefore they start giving you the benefit of the doubt. And she started going into like, the noon work classes or to see her teachers, and all of a sudden she's getting straight A's, and now she feels like she's done it herself. It's
Right.
all her impetus, which is really in the long run is key. I didn't want her feeling like we kind of pushed her into it. I wanted
Right.
her feeling like she was interested and she generated it all on her own. And previously she was not feeling like she could do any better than she was doing. Like, to
Right.
have her have her win, and watching her have her own win is lot feels a lot better than like, we had a win because she did something we wanted her to.
Yeah, I mean, you all win. That's the beautiful part about that. And I mean, that's such a transformation. Like her mindset shift from I'm doing the best I can. This is all there is to like pushing herself to just asking how can I get better? How can I turn that last B into an A? Even though it was like it is the best I was able to do with however I approached it. And what's a better way? What can I get it? Because she now had a goal, and like the idea that she walks away going like once she sets her mind to something, she can figure out whatever's in the way and she can overcome it. That's freaking awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Here's how about the opposite of that? Like a moment where you kind of like have a regret or feel shame about how you showed up as a dad.
Because I was raised with, it wasn't appropriate to be overly emotional, um, especially with my biological mother. Um,
Mm,
that I still had some of that inside me. Like, Like, don't be a drama queen, or this kind of thing. And when you have a young child, especially a more feminine child, Maya would have emotions, and I early she didn't throw fits, which was awesome at the age when all kids are throwing fits. Like 2 to 4, when they're like, you can hear them screaming or whining to try and get what they want. Like, she didn't do that. And when she did cry or be upset, I would often ask her, like, and I'd even count it out on my fingers. I'd be like, are you really physically hurt?
Mm,
No. Are you really sad or upset or angry about something that
mm.
you're aware of? No. Okay. And then there was a third one. So there's the physical anger. What was the other? Um, anyway, I'd ask her these 3 things, and
Okay.
if the response was no to all of those,
Yeah.
it was, are you physically hurt? Are
Yeah.
you really scared? Or are you having a deep emotion that's attached to something, right?
Okay.
And a lot
Okay.
of times at that age, and even sometimes as adults, like, we're having emotions and we have no distinction about where it's coming from. Like,
Right.
I
Right.
don't know where this is coming from. And I would ask her those 3 things and, like, count them out on my hand. If they were all no, then I would be like, well, so why are you crying? I think the intention was for her. My intention was for her to be, like, authentic with her feelings. But at that age, I don't think it was valuable. I think it actually shut her down a little bit, because she's feeling something, but in some way I'm letting her know, like, you only have permission, in some way. I think she might have took it like, you only have permission to feel these things if it's these 3 categories, and you can't just be with your emotion or express your emotion if you don't have any distinction around it. Like, I don't
Right.
think that was fair.
Right.
And I think to this day I've had to, like, try and make up for that. Like, this is okay, this is totally fine. But
Right.
I think that certainly affected her growing up.
Yeah.
That may be one of the reasons my kid goes to therapy. This is what my dad did.
I have a friend who says he has a foolproof test to see if you should be in therapy, and it goes like this: Do you have parents?
That's it. That's
Yes,
it.
you have parents. You should definitely be in therapy.
Uh,
I totally relate to that. I mean, and definitely, Tammy got when the kids were really little. I was very much, what you're talking about. Like, I was just really raised that, like, emotions are not okay. You're not supposed to have. You're not supposed to be, at least, especially the out of control ish ones. And
yeah.
so I know I like came at it like my dad would, like, shut the shit down now. And Tammy got connected with an organization in the Bay Area called Hand in Hand Parenting, and one of their whole missions was just like, let them have whatever fucking emotion comes up and don't try to make sense of it. Just let them know that that you can be with them when they're having the emotion. I was like,
Mm.
oh fuck, never crossed my mind that. And it was huge. And they used to, like, have, like, you like create time, like fucking cry time or whatever it was. I forgot there was a name of it, but, like, just do what the fuck you want. Like, and I will be here with you. And, like, I will continue to love you and support you. It doesn't change anything. And it's just a way of conveying that, like, like, we don't get to control our emotions. Like, especially a kid doesn't. And so I totally relate to that part of it. So a couple more thoughts here. So I hear a lot that, like, kids are mirrors. Like, they reflect ourselves back to us in ways that, like, nothing else does. Like, how has being a dad? How do you think Maya's been a mirror for you? Like, what have you learned about yourself through, or maybe even just, like, what how have you changed being a dad? Like, how has it changed you?
I think I'm definitely more patient. I'm definitely more willing to put myself in other people's shoes without like immediately judging. Um, that's such a broad question. How has parenting changed me? Because basically all my priorities, all the values and priorities that I wanted in my life got like reduced to like, okay, these are the priorities, right? As
Mm,
opposed to all the things that I wanted to do or accomplish or experience. Like, yeah, I think I'm a lot more uh, grateful on a daily basis by getting to watch her going through life in such a way and watching her make her own decisions. Yeah, I'm more grateful. I'm more, I think, just empathetic. Like, I get to, I get to kind of live a bit of my life through her life, watching her, grok things
hmm
that I didn't understand or have any tools to work with at, at that age when I was that age. So it's a pleasing experience.
hmm
Um, and there's a certain amount of like setting things right, like having the feeling of like, when my mom left, having the feeling of like I'm uncared for. I really had to learn how to quiet that inner judge, you know, of being uncared for or unwanted, um, and really heal that myself so that I could pass that on to Maya. Because it's like you're trying to instill something in your young adult, but you don't believe it yourself. It just, it
Right.
just doesn't work. So,
I think that's the biggest part about what I'm really looking to get out of this project is that realization that all we ever do is mostly pass on generational trauma, and that like one of the
yeah,
greatest gifts we can give the world, not just our kid, is just ending certain cycles of that generational trauma, just not passing it on. But to your point, you have to do the work. Like you have to stop it rather than going, I'll just stop it in my kid. Like it doesn't stop like that. It gets passed on, and then they're now the inheritors of it. You're trying to get them to stop it. You're like, you missed your opportunity. Like it's yours to fix, not theirs.
yeah, true.
What do you hope that Maya remembers most about you as a dad? Like let's say I'm interviewing her in 30 years about on this project, and I'm like, tell me about your dad. What does she remember about you? What would she say? Or what do you want her? What do you want her to remember about you?
I think she would say, and what I would like her to say is that I loved her more than anything, and that was obvious. That I was willing to do the hard things for her benefit. That I was a bit crazy. I'm fun. That I was fun and
Mm-hmm.
definitely a bit crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that that she always felt supported.
So one of the things I really want this to be is something that benefits dads before they become dads. So, what piece of advice would you give to someone who's becoming a first time dad? Like, what would you wanted to have known?
It's a learn as you go. You don't need to know everything. It's a learn as you go. That's the first one. Two, take care of yourself so that you can take care of them better, kind of in the context that we were talking about, especially with prior traumas, etc. Enjoy the process. Keep it fun. Keep it fun and connected. I often think about, I don't know how to state this kind of in a preparation for new dads, but I often used to think or still think about like if I was at that age experiencing this, what would I have wanted?
Mm-hmm.
Like what would have really worked for me as opposed to what I got? Like what would I, knowing what I know now, what would I give myself as a young person in this situation? And then find out if that's the same thing that's appropriate for your actual child. Like it may not be, but what else? And then the last thing, that I got from our family therapist way back was 1,000 conversations are way better than a few long ones. Short conversations. Yeah, because
Awesome.
they really dig that. They're only going to pick up 3 or 4 words anyway, so make sure it's short and they get the good stuff. Yeah.
Adam, thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thanks
Appreciate you
for
so
asking.
much. Yeah.
I appreciated the process. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll keep it going.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Tony.
Love you, brother. Talk to you later. Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Dad Manual Podcast. If you liked it, please leave us a rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really liked it, please share it with a dad you love. I'm looking to grow a community of fathers who are ready to change the world, and I need your help to do that. And if you got questions or topics you want me to explore, email them to me at thedadmanual@gmail.com. I would love to answer your questions on our next episode. Until next time, I'm Tony Cooper, and this is the Dad Manual Podcast.